My girlfriend said, "My ex needs a place to stay, and he chose our home." I smiled and said, "Of course, we should help people in need." The next day, I called my own ex and invited her to stay as well. When my girlfriend saw both of their bags packed and waiting on the front porch, she finally understood. Thank you for watching. Stay with me until the end. The story holds a twist you won't expect. Subscribe to the channel and let's grow together. My name is Leo. I am 30 years old and work as an architectural designer for a commercial real estate firm. My girlfriend was Clara. She is 28 and works as a program coordinator for a local environmental nonprofit. We had been in a relationship for 3 years and had been living together for the past 18 months in a 2-bedroom house we rented in a quiet suburb. Our relationship was built on a foundation of mutual respect and shared interests. We enjoyed a predictable but comfortable routine. During the week, our schedules were demanding, so evenings were typically spent cooking dinner together, discussing our days, and watching documentaries or reading. Weekends were more active. We often went hiking on nearby trails, visited farmers markets, or worked on small home improvement projects. The tone of our relationship was collaborative and calm. We communicated openly about finances, household responsibilities, and future plans, which included saving for a down payment on a property of our own. We rarely had significant disagreements. Our life together was stable, organized, and progressing along a path we had both agreed upon. There were no underlying issues that I was aware of that would suggest a fundamental problem in our partnership. The situation began on a Wednesday evening. Clara came home from work later than usual. She seemed preoccupied during dinner, providing only brief answers to my questions about her day. After we had cleaned up, she asked if we could talk. We sat in the living room, and she began to explain a situation concerning her ex-boyfriend, Ben. Clara and Ben had dated for 2 years and had broken up a year before Clara and I met. According to Clara, they had maintained a distant but cordial relationship, occasionally exchanging text messages on birthdays or holidays. She told me that Ben was in a difficult position. The apartment building where he lived had been sold to a new developer, and all the tenants had been given 60 days notice to vacate. That notice period was ending in 1 week, and Ben had been unable to secure a new apartment. She said he was facing the possibility of having nowhere to live. Then, she made the request. She said, "My ex needs a place to stay, and he chose our home." She proposed that Ben could stay in our spare bedroom for a month or 2, until he found a place of his own. She presented this not as a question to be discussed, but as a solution to a problem that she had already decided upon. She framed it as a matter of basic human decency, an act of kindness for someone in a desperate situation. I listened to the entire proposal without interruption. Update 1. After Clara finished her proposal, I took a moment to process the information. The request was a significant deviation from the established boundaries of our relationship. My initial internal reaction was one of disbelief. Our home was our shared private space, and the introduction of a third person, particularly a former romantic partner, would fundamentally alter its dynamic. I needed to understand her perspective fully before I responded. I asked her a series of clarifying questions. I asked why Ben had specifically chosen our home, given that they were not close friends. Clara explained that he had exhausted other options, and he knew we had a spare room. She said he felt comfortable asking her because she was a compassionate person. I asked if she had considered the impact this would have on our relationship and our daily lives. She acknowledged that it would be an adjustment, but insisted it was a temporary measure. Her thought process seemed to be driven entirely by empathy for Ben's situation. She appeared to have a significant blind spot regarding the violation of our shared space and the emotional complexity of having an ex-partner live with us. She viewed my hesitation not as a reasonable concern for our relationship's boundaries, but as a lack of compassion on my part. I did not immediately reject her proposal. Arguing the point from an emotional or relational perspective would be ineffective, as she had already framed the issue as a moral imperative. A direct, no, would position me as the uncharitable one in the dynamic she had created. I needed to respond in a way that addressed the principle she was introducing into our relationship. The principle was this: our home could be used as a temporary residence for former partners in a time of need, based on a unilateral decision made by one of us. I appeared to consider her request seriously for a few minutes. Then, I looked at her and said the words from the hook. Of course, we should help people in need. Her expression visibly relaxed. She thanked me for being so understanding. We did not discuss the logistics further that night. She seemed satisfied that I had agreed to her plan. The next morning, I made a phone call. I called my own ex-girlfriend, Maya. Maya and I had dated for 3 years in our early 20s. Our breakup, 5 years ago, was amicable, caused by diverging career paths. We had remained friends in a genuine, platonic sense. We met for coffee 3 or 4 times a year to catch up. I explained the entire situation with Clara and Ben to her. I explained the principle Clara had established and the strategy I had formulated to address it. Maya understood immediately. She found the situation absurd, but agreed to assist me in making my point. She agreed to pack a suitcase and an overnight bag and be available the following day. My plan was not to have her actually move in, but to create a physical demonstration of the logical conclusion of Clara's new household rule. That evening, I approached Clara. I told her that I had been inspired by her compassion and that it had made me reflect on my own past relationships. I said, "You won't believe the coincidence, but my ex, Maya, is in a bit of a tight spot. Her roommate is moving out unexpectedly, and she can't cover the full rent herself. She needs to find a new place, and I told her that since we are helping people in need, she could stay with us for a while too." I used the same calm, matter-of-fact tone that Clara had used when she presented her request about Ben. Update 2: Clara's reaction to my announcement about Maya was immediate and negative. She stared at me, her expression a mixture of confusion and anger. She said, "That's completely different." I asked her to explain how it was different. I pointed out that I was applying the exact same principle she had introduced. We have a home, and our ex-partners are in need. Her response was not based on logic, but on emotion. She said that her relationship with Ben was in the past, and that she was just helping a friend. She accused me of being manipulative and trying to create drama. I remained calm. I told her, "I am operating under the new rule you established yesterday. The rule is that our home is a sanctuary for ex-partners facing housing insecurity. You did not present this as a discussion. You presented it as a decision. I have made a decision based on the same compassionate principle." She could not articulate a logical reason why it was acceptable for Ben to live with us, but not Maya. Her arguments were circular. "It's just not the same. And you're doing this to punish me." I told her that my intention was not to punish, but to ensure that the rules of our household were applied consistently and fairly to both of us. The conversation ended in a stalemate. Clara was visibly upset and refused to discuss it further. She said we would talk about it tomorrow. The plan was set. Ben was scheduled to arrive the next day, Saturday, around noon. I had arranged for Maya to arrive at the same time. On Saturday morning, the atmosphere in the house was tense. Clara and I did not speak. At 11:55 a.m., I saw Ben's car pull into the driveway. He got out and began to unload 2 large suitcases and a duffel bag from his trunk. A minute later, Maya's car pulled up behind his. She got out, gave me a small wave, and retrieved 1 suitcase and an overnight bag from her car. I walked outside to greet them both. Clara followed me, standing on the front porch with her arms crossed. I said, "Ben, Maya, welcome. Thanks for coming." They both looked slightly uncomfortable, aware of the tension. I gestured to the pile of luggage on our driveway. There were 4 suitcases and 2 bags in total. I turned to Clara. "Well," I said, "it looks like we're going to have a full house. Since the spare bedroom can only realistically fit 1 person, we'll need to figure out sleeping arrangements. Perhaps one of them can take the couch." Clara looked at the luggage, then at Ben, then at Maya, and finally at me. Her face was pale. The theoretical situation had become a tangible reality on her front porch. The sight of both her ex-boyfriend and my ex-girlfriend, with their bags packed, waiting to move into our home, was the physical manifestation of her broken boundary. She looked at me and said, "Leo, can we talk in private?" Ben and Maya took the cue and began making small talk with each other by their cars. Clara and I went inside. She finally said, "I understand now. This is not going to work." I asked her what, specifically, was not going to work. She admitted that she had not considered my perspective or the impact on our relationship when she had made her request. She said that seeing Maya there made her realize how inappropriate her demand had been. She had been so focused on solving Ben's problem that she had ignored her responsibility to our partnership. Final update: the conversation that followed was direct and conclusive. Clara acknowledged that her request was a fundamental breach of trust. She apologized for not discussing it with me as a partner, and for putting me in an impossible position. She understood that my action with Maya was not born out of a desire to have my ex move in, but to illustrate the unacceptability of her own proposal. I told her that while I appreciated the apology, the incident had revealed a significant issue in our relationship. Her willingness to unilaterally compromise our shared private space for an ex-boyfriend was a red flag I could not ignore. It demonstrated a lack of respect for me and for the sanctity of our home. My trust in her judgment was broken. We agreed that Ben could not stay with us. Clara went outside and spoke with him alone. I went out and spoke with Maya. I thanked her for her help, and she left. A few minutes later, Ben put his luggage back in his car and drove away. Clara told me later that she had given him the number of a friend of hers who had a room for rent and had offered him some money to help with a deposit. Over the next week, Clara and I had several long conversations. However, the dynamic between us had irrevocably shifted. I could no longer view our home as a secure, private space. I explained to her that the trust had been too severely damaged for me to continue the relationship. It was not just about the request itself, but about what it signified, that she was capable of prioritizing an old relationship over our current one, without consultation or consideration. We decided to end our relationship. Because we were renting, the process was relatively simple. Our lease was month to month. I found a new apartment and gave our landlord 30 days notice. We divided our shared belongings amicably, much in the same way we had managed our household. The process was civil and without conflict. I moved out at the end of the month. I have not had any contact with Clara since. I do not know if she maintained contact with Ben. The situation served as a clear lesson on the importance of boundaries. A partnership requires that both individuals protect the relationship from external pressures, especially those originating from past romantic entanglements. Clara's inability to do so made it clear that we were not compatible as long-term partners. I am now settled in my new place, and while the outcome was the end of a relationship, it was also the necessary re-establishment of my own personal and domestic boundaries.